Hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar on the mistakes not to make when you make the break. Firstly, I just want to make sure you can all hear me and that we're all set up and ready to go. So if you can type in the chat box that you can hear me okay, that'd be great. For those that may not have used the GoToWebinar software before, there's a panel to your right of screen where you can enter comments and ask questions. So if you can just give me a yes or a no, if you're able to hear me okay, that'd be great. And I know I can get started. Great, I have a yes from Faheen, another one from VJ, Michael, a yes from Sarah, Katrina, and we've got a hand up from Guillaume. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. So I hope that means that you can hear me. So my name's Samantha, and together we'll be going through the webinar over the next hour. And there'll be some relevant information and some great insights and tips to share with you today. And you know, of course I'm aware that you've allocated some time out of your day to join and participate. So that being the case, wanting to make this as effective for you as possible. So if you do have any questions or any comments that you want to make during the course of the webinar, please just type in the chat box, and I'll do my best to read through them and get through them as best I can, depending on time. And just a couple more people joining. Excellent. Okay. We might just move on. There's a few people that are registered, and they'll probably pop on over the next few minutes, but I don't want to hold everyone up that's already registered and ready to go. So breaking free from the corporate shackles, as I like to call it, to start your own venture and be your own boss is something that's really quite courageous, but it also comes with some really awesome opportunities. And having said that, the potential for slip-ups or mistakes is really common as you're navigating your way through the unknown and riding the emotional waves on that journey. And whether that journey is entrepreneurship, or whether it's business ownership, or whether it's self-employment, I'll just point out I'll use those terms interchangeably, but depending on what your journey is, it's all really the same for tonight's message. As a corporate escapee, I've been on the journey for quite a while now, and I've certainly made plenty of mistakes. And I've realised there's so much you can learn and so much to know to be able to really operate outside the confines of a corporate job. During the hour we have together, we're going to explore some of the, what I would say, more common errors and stumbling blocks that can really come in the way of your journey. And so I'm going to try and just help to open your mind to the things to be conscious of, so that you can avoid making the same mistakes. Ultimately, too many mistakes or some certain mistakes can really be detrimental and impact your success. So the more awareness you have about things that can go wrong, really, then the better. And so the strategies I'll share during the webinar can really reduce the time it takes to get started on your journey and get going on your new venture, because you'll be a step ahead in really knowing what not to do. And the things that I'll share as well will also give you that confidence that you're on the right track if you haven't already, well, actually if you have already started the journey, and really improve your chances of surviving that transition from being in a corporate job to being a business owner. Now, I can't promise the solution to every potential problem. I can, however, share the more common slip-ups from both my own experiences and also from the many business owners and entrepreneurs that I've met, interacted with, interviewed, and also worked with on the way. And I'm hoping to really give you as much as I can in the hour that we have allocated in the end. I'll also let you know just exactly how we can keep the conversation going so you can apply some of these strategies as soon as possible. So I hope that all sounds good. Looks like we have just a few other people that have just joined. Just done a little bit of an intro. Hope you can hear me okay. Please just give me a sign that you can. Otherwise, I'll move on. I just wanted to share a little bit about me before we start. I call myself a corporate escapee, having spent many years climbing that infamous corporate ladder to dizzy heights and working for companies like PwC and Qantas. I went through a phase in my life, though, where I became quite bored and demotivated with that life and career that I was living. I really lost my drive and I felt as though something was missing and I couldn't really quite put my finger on what it was. I really dreaded the Monday morning drive to work, and because I just felt dissatisfied, I was really determined to find a solution. And I changed roles and did a few different things and tried to find new challenges in the work that I was doing, but I couldn't really find anything that was fixing my demotivation and dissatisfaction problem. And I guess the other thing, I was really starting to feel quite limited and restricted of what I could achieve in a corporate job. And really ultimately thinking about it, could I really have a corporate job until retirement age? I thought about that for a while, and that thought didn't really sit well with me. And so the concept, I guess, of really living a fulfilling and rewarding life and a life of purpose really became a priority. And that was only going to happen if I made a significant change. And that significant change was ditching the corporate life and taking on a whole new challenge. In what I was doing in corporate, I had a real passion to train people, work in a consulting capacity and coach and mentor. And with those, the learnings and experience that I had in corporate, I thought I could actually take that skill set and that experience and just do it on my own terms and and be my own boss. And so now through a training and consulting business that I have called the Innovation Agents and also a coaching practice called Ditch the Ladder, I am able to empower people to play smarter, not harder, and be creative and go from good to great. It wasn't for me, and this isn't that different to the journey for a lot of people starting out. It wasn't all smooth sailing to get where I am now. So initially I went into business with a business partner. However, after a period of time, it worked out that both our personal and business strategies, you could say, weren't really aligned. We didn't really have an adequate marketing strategy, and so ultimately our recipes for success were quite different as well. So we parted ways, and that experience of having to go through something where it didn't work out, and also really thinking about a lot of those learnings that I was having on this journey of being out of a job and trying to find my way in a new world. I ended up writing a book about that journey, and the sole objective of that book is to actually help others who are thinking of starting a business. So really focusing on the lessons learnt and managing expectations for those that are considering it, and helping to fast track the process, because we all want to move quickly, don't we? We don't want to be just taking forever and ever to really be getting to where we need to be in our entrepreneur or business owner journey. So it's giving that information and insight to help people move along quickly. And I do have a bit of a passion for writing, so I have a few articles that are published across different mediums, pretty much on the topic of moving from corporate job to entrepreneur. And I have a few, well, there's a few organisations that I have an association with in terms of my consulting services. So that gives a little bit of background about me. There are, I pretty much, you can say I've summarised some key mistakes to take you through into 3 key categories. Within those categories, there's a bit more to explore, but just to give you an idea of how we'll go through the content today. But I firstly wanted to share with you some statistics just to get us all thinking. And they're not the nicest of statistics. They're pretty confronting, but it's important to show. And I think since I've been on the journey, and I've always really been keen to understand, what stats are out there about small business. And I don't think it really is a secret, to anyone on the webinar tonight, that starting a business is hard and it's tough, and the statistics show that. And I've been following a lot of stats that the Bureau of Statistics publish, and this was the most recent one I found, 2016, which is just showing business survival trends over time. And to really sum up those stats there that I've got on the screen, within 3 years of starting, it's roughly about 50% of businesses do actually close their doors, which is really telling that it's a hard slog, it's a hard gig, and really proves, these kinds of stats really prove that starting business does really come with challenges, and the success critical components for a lot of people can really easily be overlooked, and mistakes are made, and they're made often. So moving on to the first mistake that I'd like to call out, and that is not doing the research. And I've divvied this concept up into a few different ideas, so I'll take you through what I mean by each of these. Now, when we we embark on something new or something big or something exciting, we always have that urgency to begin and get going. There's adrenaline, there's excitement. We're just wanting to sort of leave what we know, leave that behind, and just focus on the adventure that we're embarking on. Though not completing and taking that time to complete some essential research and some groundwork before jumping in can really end up being quite a big mistake. And the first one, and this is more of a personal thing, and sometimes I do think this is overlooked by a lot of people, is actually to really understand your why. So Why do you want to make the move? Why do you want to leave your job? Why do you want to become an entrepreneur or a business owner or self-employed? And why does it matter to you? Now, there's an excellent TED Talk by Simon Sinek. Sinek is his surname. If you have a chance after tonight's webinar, over the next couple of days, look it up. He talks about the importance of knowing your why, and how, generally in life and at work and in our careers and in business, we tend to know the what and the how, and we kind of go along just knowing that, but we don't always take that step back and think about, well, why are we doing what we're doing? And Simon sort of makes the connection in his TED Talk too, that generally, if you're communicating your why, your potential customers will pick up that and they'll actually buy your why. So he puts it very compelling way. So it's very worth looking at and having listened to what he says. But even going back to more specifically what we're talking about tonight, I would say that having a bad day and maybe you're not getting on with your boss so well, maybe that's not always a reason to then just decide to quit and go do something drastic. It needs to sort of go beyond that. As I mentioned in my intro about me, I'd been demotivated and dissatisfied for quite a while. So I'd gone through this period of having that dissatisfaction and tried a few different things and realised that I did actually really have to dig deep and go, okay, well, why am I doing why I'm doing? So what do I need to do to change this situation? So it's all about considering, yes, where you are now, where you want to be, and having a think about that early on rather than later, so that you end up going on the path that you're more destined to be on. The other component that I've identified here is, summing up as market need. We all have great ideas, but doesn't necessarily mean that others will share the same sentiment. Too many people start out with an idea for a product or a service, and they think they know what their customers want. So what I'm saying here is that it's really critical that you determine if there's a market for your particular idea and if it's something that potential customers will want from you. If anyone's heard of the lean startup methodology, then they're probably aware of this whole concept. It's not new, but it's something that's certainly become popular in the last 5 to 10 years or so, where it's all about testing your ideas with your customers as you go along the product development journey, so that by the end of that, once your product's ready, you've got customers and they're ready to buy. Now, the lean startup has been popular in that product development and that tech space. That doesn't mean to say that the concepts aren't relevant if you're the type of person who's in a service industry or thinking of starting up a business that's actually providing a service. The concept's still the same. It's still making sure that you're going to provide for customers, you understand what they want. The other thing that's really important is to think about, your competitors as well. Who's out there at the moment doing what you're doing? What challenges would that present to you when you start up? What are they good at, not so good at? And ultimately, what do you need to do then to be one step ahead of them? The fact that they're there and they exist isn't a bad thing. It means that there is a market for your good or service already, and that just means that you need to find a better way, or a way to actually be better than them and stand out more and be more attractive to potential customers. Really not researching those things of your market, your potential customers and your competitors, and not doing that at the beginning really can be quite critical, because it can mean that you ultimately spend money and time, which are your two key resources, developing something that you may not then be able to sell. And that's the last thing that you want to really have happen. Of course, I just mentioned money and time, and so just on the last point on this slide, it's no secret. Really, I showed some stats before about the number of businesses that don't make it to their third birthday, and running out of cash is a key contributor to business failure. So it really goes without saying that careful budgeting, keeping your finances in check, is really critical at the beginning. So having a budgeting mindset and really understanding your numbers is really important. Not just at the beginning, obviously ongoing, but especially at the beginning, when you're probably trying to do a lot of things. If you've decided you're actually going to start your business, quit your job first, then there's all those kinds of things to consider, and money is critical. I sort of go by, I call it the double up rule, and it's something I talk to my existing clients about, and that is, time and money are really easy to underestimate. We have in our mind how long we think something would take, and how much it might cost. And usually if you do that determination, it's always best to at least double it. If you think it's going to take you 2 weeks to set up a website and get it running, then at least double it to 4. And the same applies from a dollar perspective as well. And that's not just something that's obviously relevant to starting a business. I think sometimes we do that a lot in the workplace as well. Our boss says, I need this report. How long do you think it's going to take? And you think, it'll take a day, and it ends up taking 2. So it's that whole, whatever you might think, just be wary that we tend to sometimes underestimate. We might just do a quick pause there. I might just grab a sip of water. So if you have any questions or comments on anything that we've touched on so far, just feel free to write them in the chat box. Any questions? Guillaume, since when have you been going solo? Yeah, so my journey started 2014. So this year I'll be coming up to 3 years. Hope, I'm assuming that means you have no questions. I'm hoping that means that it doesn't mean that you can't hear me. Excellent. Yep. Any other questions? Jill has also just wants some clarity on the lean startup that I referred to. Yeah, sure. I could probably spend quite a bit of time talking about it. I'm not an expert in it by any means, but yeah, it just is a methodology that really sort of understands the wants of potential customers early rather than later. Yeah, so it has been sort of popular in the development of more products. It's what it's known for, and the whole idea is you develop a product in stages or iteratively, and you then get feedback from the market and from customers as you go. And the whole idea is that you reduce your costs and reduce risk by doing it that way, by doing it in stages. And so definitely in the tech space as well, it's quite popular. And it's probably something that probably will become more popular. And as I said before, even just the principles can apply to a lot of things in business. So even if you are in a service providing industry, the concepts can still be applied there as well. A few other questions coming through. Yeah, so I hope that answered that, Jill. probably if you wanted to find out more, might be better. I'm sure there's a whole heap of stuff on Google on lean startup and great examples. I probably just need to move on in terms of time. What is your single greatest learning in starting out, from Martin? I would say that you don't know what you don't know. So any opportunity to learn from others, finding a mentor for me then was really part of that journey to understand what I needed to be doing, but essentially be learning from others and others who were doing it well, understanding what they were doing well in their business and how they were growing. So really having a mentor and even just overall having growing a network of like-minded people, going to network events, meeting others in the same space. I have to say that was a great learning. I do actually have another webinar, Martin, probably on some of my learnings. I haven't actually done it for a while. I know I did it a couple of times last year, but probably prompted me to maybe run it again another time soon, because that's another thing where I could probably talk for a while. But thank you for the question. Hope, what stage of the business did you leave your job and go full-time? So I was one of those that did the high-risk approach, as in I left my job before even starting out. At the time I left my job, I knew that I wanted to work for myself and be my own boss in that capacity. I just didn't know exactly what my business was going to look like at that point. So there was a little bit of time needed to, I guess, go through and develop that and work that out. And that's where initially as I mentioned in my intro, I went into business with a business partner, and then I learnt quite a little bit from that. So definitely I did the high risk option and fully cut off the income when I was starting out, which has its pros and cons. And Martin, I'm not sure. Martin, I'm not sure just in that last question that you've put in. Do you want to just clarify? I'm probably just going to move on to the next section. So if you don't mind, perhaps maybe as I go through the next section, do you mind maybe just clarifying your question? Thank you. And yes, there are no further questions. That's great. Heaps of questions. Thanks, guys. Move on to the second mistake that I will point out. If I can get my slides moving. Yep, here we go. And we flipped over. Yes, we have. Well, I've got this same but different. But the key crux of what I'm wanting to communicate in this space about this mistake is that making the assumption that you just do what you do in your job today, but in a different capacity as your own boss. So that is a big mistake. Relying solely on your technical skills, for example, will only get you so far. And what I mean by that, if you're currently working as an accountant in a corporate job and you've decided that you want to go start your own accounting business, and going, yes, well, I'm great at accounting, so it should be easy. I can just be in a job one day and start up my own business and be doing what I was doing before the next. That assumption can be quite wrong. In that scenario, as an accountant, your skills in sales and marketing would be just as critical as your technical accounting prowess. There are quite a few additional skills that would be necessary outside the confines of a corporate structure. Within our corporate jobs, we tend to specialise in a specific skill. So in that example, if you're an accountant, then you're predominantly doing accounting type skills. When you're out working for yourself, you need to wear different hats. So hence I've got on the slide, pictures of different hats just to signify that wearing different hats is all about managing a variety of different responsibilities and tasks. One day you might be the decision maker on strategy, the next day you're out buying stationery. One day you're the sales master, the next day you're doing the finances. So it's just being aware to be prepared for those challenging tasks, some of which you may not have done before. And also wearing different hats, to me, and how I like to explain it to clients as well, is really having that mix between being both a detail person and a visionary. So again, I put an interesting picture on the slide, which is a picture of a certain kind of fish. It's an anablep, and it's a freshwater fish that lives in tropical America. And the reason why I put it up there as an interesting animal is that its eyes are divided into two so that it can actually see both above the water and below the water. And the reason why I've put that up there as an analogy is that ability to really be down in the detail of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, but also being able to be looking ahead, being able to strategize and have a vision for what you're doing, so that you are sort of looking at things from all different perspectives all at once. Again, probably in a corporate perspective, in a job that you might be doing, you're probably in either of those categories. You're either down in the detail pretty much all the time, or you're up in the strategy all the time. So what I'm saying is, working for yourself, you've basically got to be doing both and be like that fish that can kind of see everything that's going on. Another thing to be aware of is that quite different to being in a corporate job is, not having that security of having a job. If there isn't much work on, then, in a job, that's your boss's responsibility to, fix that or do something about that. When you're working for yourself, if there isn't much work on, you've got to actually go out and fix that problem yourself. And there's also, probably a few different types of fears that you might come across as well. So that fear of the unknown. There's not that certainty of having that regularity of the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. There's fear of maybe making the wrong decisions, maybe fear of failure. And it's ultimately sort of that fear is something that, in a way, you need to become comfortable with. And fear can hold you back. So sort of almost getting comfortable with that fear really helps, and then, moving forward and building something that's great. And the third point on the slide that just wanted to point out, where some people might slip up on, that it's not going to be different when they make the transition, and that's on the home front. So that's in our personal lives. When we think of being in our jobs, and we go, okay, we want a bit of a change, we're going to go out and be our own boss and do our own thing. We're doing that from the mindset of our career, and being business focused and have our business hats on, so to speak. But really, this change in career path isn't just about business and career and job, but it does actually encompass your personal life as well. So personal relationships can really easily be, impacted, because it is a major shift in direction. So it's one of those things where, too, it's quite beneficial if you're going to go through this transition, that you have family and friends who are able to provide some support or understanding or encouragement, because sometimes it can be a tough journey. And I have to say, from a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that I've met, and even some friends that I have going on the journey as well, they all have some form of what I call like a personal impact story. So either their partner didn't really understand what they were doing, or their friends just assumed that because they worked from home, that all they did was sit around and watch TV all day, which certainly isn't the case. And so there was sometimes too, there was this assumption that because you're not doing a 9 to 5, getting on the bus and going to the city every day, that means that you don't work as hard as people who have jobs. So sometimes you can get that kind of judgment and reaction from friends and family as well. So it's just, you know, being mindful that you know, those close to you almost, you know, come on the journey with you as well, and being prepared that the whole transition does go beyond just work and just career, and so keeping those components in mind is really critical. We might do another quick pause there. Again, interested in any questions or comments. And I can see, Martin, I'll just go back, and you've just clarified that question, which is awesome. Yeah, so why video and Simon? Yes, so what you're referring to there, you want to know Simon Sinek, his name. I can actually, I'll just type it in the chat box and I'll send it out to everyone. Highly recommended once you get off this webinar tonight, of course. So it's Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And if you just Google, it's all about the why, I think. I can't remember the exact title of his TED Talk, but basically by just Googling Simon Sinek and why, I'm sure the options will come up. Any other questions? And anything that I just covered on moving to a world that is a little bit different than what you might initially think? Okay, a few coming through. Okay. Guillaume has asked, how easy is it to find a mentor? It can be pretty easy. Sometimes it can be hard. It depends on what kind of mentor you're looking for and where you're looking. Sometimes within our own networks, it might be a good starting point to find someone. There are, I know specifically for women, there's a few different women's networks that exist that do actually sort of have that as a bit of a, you know, an added bonus as part of membership and things like that. And they actually do sort of promote that kind of activity. Not sure that it happens as much in the male space, but my advice would be, at least starting out, is just to connect within your own network, and, you know, second level networks as well. Start speaking to friends and business colleagues, and you know, be putting it out there that you know, you're after someone, and the types of things that you need to really be putting out there is, well, what do you want? What do you want to get from a mentor? Because depending on what you want to achieve and what you want to get out of the mentor relationship will drive the type of person that you might you know, ultimately link up with. Probably through social media, I'd say there's probably other avenues to actually try to, you know, hook up with other people in a similar space or a similar situation as well. So probably worthwhile trying those avenues too. And from Hope, the personal impact of going solo is often overlooked. Yes, agree, Hope, definitely agree. Martin, how often do you get people to your live seminars or presentations? Or how do you get people? That's probably, you know, that's potentially another whole topic in itself. And I don't know if you're talking, if you're just sort of asking generally or talking about me specifically, because I mean, I do some presentations, and I'll talk about that at the end. But that, ultimately, as it's almost like a promotional marketing type question. That's again, I could probably talk for a while about that. Happy to maybe take that one offline, Martin, because there probably is a lot to it. If you just want to indicate if that's fine, I'm happy to connect post the webinar to maybe get a little bit more detail around the question. Cool. Okay. Thanks, Martin. Awesome. How are we going for time? I'm just doing a bit of a quick time check. I've just got a few more points to go through. Just double check, no more questions at the moment. So I want to just move on to the last, I'll call it the group of mistakes that I wanted to chat about. And that's, I've put as the title of the slide, are you working harder or smarter? And what I mean by that is not really focusing on the important things first. I think a lot of times, and I'm sure we all do it, we're all guilty of it, is that we can be good at keeping ourselves busy, but not necessarily productive. So if you take, for example, probably a really good example, which I know I'm probably guilty of at times, is, your email. You can spend an hour checking your email and you'll be busy doing that. And after that hour, you'll feel as though, oh, I was just busy. I've just got to go have a break or go get a coffee. It's used an hour of my time. But if you look back and you think, yeah, but were you really productive with how you spent that time just by checking emails? So unless that time checking emails was actually directed towards building your business or growing your network or getting some clients in the door, but I know for me sometimes it's not, and yes, you have that guilt of, well, have I really been productive? So this whole mistake I'm talking about here is just really not focusing on what I call the hard stuff, your priorities first up. And another example that I do tend to come across with people starting out is this real drive. Okay, you've got your idea, so you kind of think, yep, okay, I'm ready to go. And then there's this real drive to just get business cards and a website set up. And people just get caught in just doing those activities and nothing else. And I've spoken to some people and you say, well, how long have you been working on your website and getting your business cards ready? And it's like, oh, well, 6 months. And it's like, but what else have you done at that time? Well, nothing. I've been developing the website. And that's an easy trap to fall into. I mean, that's for most of us something that's easy and fun, and we like to do it, and we're getting excited because we're like, wow, we're about to put ourselves out there. I guess the point that I want to make is that there are other priorities, and in some respects, and depending on the type of business you're going into and how your finances are, getting some cash in the door is priority. So yes, I'm not saying a website's not important or business cards aren't important. I'm just saying that it needs to be balanced with other things that need to be worked on, especially in the initial stages of setting up a business. And that actually might mean, depending on what your business is, that you might be working with some clients and the website's being developed on the side. So unless you're using your website as a key online sales tool, it's just about spending your time wisely so that you're actually getting some clients in the door first. I really like your comment there, Martin. I just saw that. So emails are someone else's to-do list, not your to-do list, and that's a great comment. I really like that one. I think I'm going to use that. That really sums up just how unproductive emails can be, I think. And just the other point on this slide in terms of where your focus should be and making sure that we're not focusing on the wrong things. I've put here about focusing on your strengths. And this is something to consider, if you're someone who hasn't actually come up with your business idea yet. So whether it's from a business idea perspective or how you do things day to day, and how you achieve things, it's having in the back of your mind that you're focusing on your strengths and what you're good at, because there is some psychology and science behind the fact that, as humans, if we're doing things where we're applying our strengths, then we end up being more productive, and we get better results, and we're also then more happier and we're more confident. And I could talk about this for a while, but just given the science behind it. But it is just to point out of thinking, having a think about what are your strengths, and are you actually, spending your time during the day focusing on the things that you're really good at. And the other point that I like to sort of make here about focus on strengths, and this is something where some of you on the webinar might disagree with me on this particular point, but I think when you're starting a business, you're just starting out, there's a lot of people out there that will say follow your passion. If you've got a passion, you should follow that and turn that into a business, and then everything will be fine. And I have to say I do, to an extent, disagree with turning a passion into a business. You're crossing that fine line between something that's potentially a hobby and then something that's actually going to be sustainable or generate income. A lot of the times our passions aren't necessarily those things that will provide something that's sustainable, ongoing income. There might be, yes, fulfillment, but from a sustainability perspective, it's not necessarily there. So hence why I usually say to people, well, consider your strengths first in terms of a business idea or how to get going on something, because that's the thing that's going to keep driving you day to day, because that's the type of work that then you'll enjoy, you'll be more productive, and you'll be happier. Again, another quick pause. Happy to take any other questions or comments before we just do a bit of a summary and a bit of a wrap-up of what we talked about tonight. Okay, questions. Yes, Guillaume, is my hobby marketable? That's very, yeah, that's a very open question, and that could depend on what your hobby is. And yeah, going back to mixing it up with your passion, it can depend on a few things. To confirm my comment. Again, it's from my viewpoint, I think it's just being careful about trying to turn a hobby into a business. I think it just depends on what the hobby is. If I'm talking about passions more specifically too, I have a passion for singing, but I'm not going to go and become turn that into any kind of business, because that's something that I will always just keep as something I like to do in my spare time. It's not a business component. And I know that's probably a bit of an extreme example, but that's just to show kind of where I'm coming from, that there are other aspects of what I do from a business perspective that I'm good at, which I think are much more marketable and things that I can do day to day to make an ongoing living, feel fulfilled, and also generate income from it as well. Cool. Any other questions or comments? Just checking we haven't actually got that long to go. I might just start to wrap up, but definitely if you've got any other comments, please put them in there. If we do have time, I will try and cover them off before we finish up. Just wanted to point out that if you did want to find out a bit more about what you need to know and what you need to understand and be aware of when it comes to leaving corporate, I am running a workshop in April, which is a half-day session that goes into a little bit more detail. Now, April might seem a little bit way off, but when you think about it, we are in mid-February already. The year is flying, and my my March workshop is already booked out. Got some details of the workshop on the screen. I guess the key thing to point out is not only is it a chance to find out a little bit more information and more insights, and maybe even delve into more detail about some of the things that we've covered tonight. It is also an opportunity to to meet and socialise and collaborate with other people in the same boat, which is a very important thing to do if you are deciding to embark on the journey of leaving your job for something much more fulfilling. I do have a special on this just till the end of February for this particular session for those on the webinar, that instead of $47, it's only $30. And you also receive a copy of my book, Digital Ladder, which I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. And I know, actually, just looking at the listener, there's a couple of people who came to one of my sessions in 2016. And yeah, great to have you on the webinar tonight. But for everyone else, I'd love to see you there and have a chance to meet you face to face and really understand where you are on your journey at the moment. There is a link that I have just set up in Eventbrite. I will just quickly copy and paste that just into the chat box. If you want to have a look at it this evening after the webinar. So I've just put that in there and just get the presentation back up. Thought I would also just share my contact details with you all. Got my contact details up here on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, email. So please connect with me. It'd be great to keep in contact, and you've been a very interactive group tonight, which has been awesome. I probably just wanted to just quickly in the last few minutes before we wrap up is just to do a little bit of a quick summary, because I know I've gone through a bit of content and we've had a little bit of discussion about some of the content as we've been going, but just to really summarize, it comes to some of the key mistakes. It's all really about doing your research first, really dig deep to find your why, research what your customers want, your potential customers want, your competitors, and really understand the finances and the time requirements involved. Realize it's not the same as the world that you're currently living in. If you are still in a job, there are other hats to wear. There's the relationship with fear that needs to be embraced, and there's also that impact on personal relationships as well that needs to be considered. And also understanding about focusing on priorities and using your time wisely and knowing your strengths. I'll just put my contact details back up. Got a couple more minutes if anyone does have any other questions before we end the webinar. Oh, thank you, Guillaume. I know you said you're interested in the workshop, which is great. That's awesome. I look forward to seeing you there. That's great. And Rob has just asked, is this a Saturday? Yes, the workshop is a Saturday. And yeah, just to point out, I do tend to run these half days on weekends, just being mindful that people are generally working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Depending on interest, I may later in the year run some, maybe on a Friday, but that'll just depend on interest. Oh, thanks, Maria. I appreciate that you need to go. Thanks for joining us. Okay, doesn't look like. I'll just wait 30 more seconds just to see if there's any more questions. So the last point I probably just really wanted to make was that there are a lot of potential traps to fall into, but probably the biggest mistake is really not taking some form of action just to get started and get started today. And so that could be engaging a mentor, starting to grow your network, or crafting, escape plan, as I like to call it, from your corporate job. Yeah, so sometimes it really is the small steps and just those actions on a daily basis that can really, add up to something big. It's all about taking action. Probably the last thought that I wanted to leave you guys with for this evening. I can see there's no more questions and we're just about running out of time. So just wanted to say it's been a real pleasure sharing my insights with you all on the webinar today. You've been a great group, very responsive, and yeah, so your participation's been great. I will be sending out a link to the recording over the next couple of days, and that will also just give you the chance to provide any feedback if there's anything in particular that you wanted to mention. Guillaume, your first webinar for the year. Awesome, great. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. That's great. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, so everyone, looks like that's it for questions. So enjoy the rest of your week, and I really look forward to catching up soon. Good night.